What was the actual conflict? It was in between, generally speaking, it was in between two ethnicities, right? Or it was more complex than this?
I think that's how it always gets reported, right?
Okay.
In the international news, I think that's a way of simplifying it, right?
Yeah.
There is a deep history of, there was a divide and rule history during the British colonial period, very similar to what happened in Rwanda. And when they transitioned out, they left certain structures in place that led to this kind of, there were certain things about shifting to majority rules with no minority protections and the way that the structures were left. It's different than a country or community coming up with laws that match their context versus being in a colonial situation where you've taken in certain laws from outside that might not match what your particular context is. So there's a lot of deep-rooted things that kind of emerge from that time. And there were conflicts that happened in the South, Sinhala to Sinhala. There were conflicts that happened in the North, Tamil to Tamil. And the international news represents it as being an ethnic conflict, but there's a lot more complexity than
exactly.
that. Yeah. It's rooted
That's why I
in
was yeah. And also, like, from my experience, having, there's a tendency to simplify such conflicts, right? Because in Colombia, it's actually the same. People, it's super complex. There are a lot of dimensions. It's not as simple as we see it. Have you ever had like any scary situation where you were like, or it was kind of like, more peaceful? Or
many.
I don't know if you can talk about it, but it's really
the organization I worked with, for the first 10 years I was there, it was very unique because it was the only one that was able to work on both sides. It had relationships with the government, it had relationships with the Tamil Tigers. So it was able to work across the border and openly, very like transparently, everyone knew that it was working both sides. And that was unusual. And so that meant all of the people I'm working with are from the areas we're working, right? So like if there's a district, the coordinator, when the war was ending and many people were displaced and they were in camps, those were all people, my colleagues and the communities I've been working with were in the camps, and the colleagues were in the camps with the communities that they've been working with. So what this meant is that there were a lot of situations where it was very sensitive and it was very risky all the time. But it's different than other places where I would have been putting people at risk. I think in some countries, having a foreigner there would have been harmful. In this case, if I'm in the vehicle and we're going through checkpoints, it would have made other people feel safer, right? So I think because it was very much connected to everybody that's there and you're all in it together, and also because this is something everyone needs to be aware of in every country, when democracy starts slipping and when things start getting violent, it's not like it's usually all of a sudden. It's something that's just like this gradual process, right? And so you don't realize how bad it is until sometimes maybe if you travel outside or you like really deep in it, and then you're like, oh wow, now the situation's actually really bad. Because on a day-to-day basis, you manage. Everybody's like, you're trying to get the kids to school, you're trying to get people trying to go to work, and you're still trying to like have normal life, right? Wow. And so the day-to-day feels normal. There are a lot of situations that feel stressful and you can be a little bit worried about, but you're around others that are also going through the same thing. Do you know what I mean? So it's a different feeling.